What does it mean to be an entrepreneur, or what does it take to be one? And actually, the answers that came to mind weren't that different when I asked myself the question, like, what does it take to be a conservationist?
We carry on doing what we're doing at the moment at the rate we're doing it, things aren't going to be around forever.
The right choice should be the easy choice.
In this episode, we sit down with Alex Sharp and Jess Wise. These two take a real entrepreneurial approach to conservation. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Habit Hackers Rebel Radio. In this episode, we sit down with Alex Sharp and Jess Wise. Jess and Alex feel extremely passionately about the protection of our world, forming the habits that allow us to live sustainably, allow the world to live sustainably. Now, this is a really interesting way to think about this. What are the habits that we have that are causing the earth to suffer? Whether that be animals, whether that be pollution, any number of issues that these guys can educate you on and educate me on. Conservation is a conversation that has existed for long enough for it to have ways of doing things. And these two are really focused on changing the way that conservation is talked about.
For some reason, it just hits me hard. Like, I just really love it. I'm not into fashion. I'm not into technology. I'm into the natural world. And I don't really know why. And I just have had that love or want to explore for as long as I can remember. And as soon as I turned 18, I was off.
I suppose it's just something that is just inherently something that I care about. I mean, it's just, for me personally, it's just, it just naturally was something. I grew up in Bournemouth with my parents, and I've always had this sort of connection with the ocean, and I love doing that sort of thing. And then, I've sort of spent a lot of time diving and spending a lot of time outdoors, and it's just something that I am it's intertwined in my sort of DNA. I love the sort of great outdoors. I love spending time outside. It's something that I'm really passionate about doing, and so I suppose it's something that I love. So it seems like the most natural thing to want to try and turn into a career, and to try and promote and foster future generations of people that have that same link.
For me, it was something that I grew up loving. I loved wildlife. I loved traveling. And then I realized that conservation can very nicely kind of combine my love of travel, working abroad. It's not enough for us to just kind of go and see awesome things and experience amazing things. We want to give back. We want to be able to do it in a way that we can be like, well, we played a part in that, whether that's by not having a negative impact or by going even more and kind of giving a positive.
I sort of come from a background where I wasn't particularly excellent at school. I obviously was. Yeah, I was not the kind of, I was the sort of person that looked forward to going out at lunchtime and playing football and rugby and all those things. But it wasn't until I left school. So got through my A-levels somehow. And then I was meant to go and do business and Spanish at university. Decided to take a gap year and did something that I'd always wanted to do growing up, which was to go backpacking around the world on my own when I was 18. And it was on that trip that I realised that actually there are jobs out there where you don't have to sit behind a desk and do business like my dad does. What the hell? So I sort of phoned my parents from Mexico and just sort of ended up leaving them a message saying, hey, I might be a little bit longer than I was expecting to be. I'm not going to be going to university. And I was the first person in my family on either side to go to uni. So I was like, I'm not going to uni next year. I probably will go, but not going to go and do what I thought. But I'll speak to you soon. Cheers. Bye. And then carried on my travels, got home, took a second gap year, as you do, and just sort of I got a job in a factory making glasses, and saved up as much money as quickly as possible so I could just do what I fell in love with, which was traveling. Obviously, I found the drinking a bucket of illegal Red Bull. It was amazing. That was great. But the thing that I actually really enjoyed was the going out and doing the sort of cultural and the more environmental things.
I think that actually, I was thinking about the answer to a question that I think you asked, Craig, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur, or what does it take to be one? And actually, the answers that came to mind weren't that different when I asked myself the question, what does it take to be a conservationist? I think it's all about kind of thinking about what that audience wants, what you think the message needs to be, or how you can best reach those, how you can make money. Even in some cases, fundraising is a huge issue in conservation, and I actually think that they are very similar kind of mindsets to be in. It's about kind of projecting the final goal and getting to it, which was quite an interesting realization. But like one thing that I think kind of came to us when we were doing it, like we love doing the hard work, the behind the scenes research, the dredging through papers or articles or guidebooks. We, for some reason, are willing to put in the hours that, a lot of people understandably aren't, whether it's that there literally aren't enough hours in the day, or that they just can't really be bothered. That's often the issue with people making their own ConservationWise trips or being aware of their own kind of food shopping vices. It's just not necessarily that they can't be bothered, but that they don't have time to. And we want to be able to do that hard work for them and give it to them in a accessible format.
I mean, everybody might not be an environmentalist, but most people care about the environment that I've come across. And so,
apart from Donald Trump,
apart from potential leaders of countries, I think that it's about trying to empower people, but making it easy and accessible. And like Jess says, we are willing to do the hard work. I mean, the 2 weeks leading up to Christmas, I was away with work, had to be in the field for 12 hours a day, and I was coming home at 6 o'clock at night and sitting in my hotel room happily till 10 o'clock at night and midnight and beyond, writing content for our website, because that, and like you were trying to say, you hear a lot about entrepreneurial people who have already got there, and achieved and done all that stuff. But we're sort of at the very inception of where we want to go. And I'm sure people do look back, as I do look back with Madagascar with rose-tinted glasses. I'm sure people look back with rose-tinted glasses on, where they came from and how they've got to where they are. And we're actually in it at the moment. And I think the biggest thing for us is we want to have fun as we're going along as well. Like, it's something we care about. It's
definitely a passion project, isn't it?
And I think that's something that for both of us is the key to this as well. Like, we're following something that we're passionate about.
It seems like you guys bring different things to the table when you're talking about
it. Definitely. Can I start with this one?
Whatever do you mean? Go on. Off you go.
We met in Madagascar. So we were already off to a good start, ticked several boxes like, yes, we'll travel. We'll live extended periods in a tent. And actually, ConservationWise, the very original concept was something I came up with when I was living in Indonesia. I was doing a student placement.
Before we met.
Before we met. Reversing. Doing a student placement, and was just kind of disgusted at how I was doing a conservation biology course and something like 3 out of 30 students went on placement at all, and I was the only one to travel internationally. And it was because of the costs associated with placements. I was lucky and managed to find one by myself, not going through a kind of third party gap year planner, so it was much reduced, but it took a lot of that hard research that we just mentioned, which a lot of people weren't willing to do, and I got out there and I got talking with a lot of people, and I had some really difficult experiences, challenging maybe the better word, but they really made me into who I was today. And talking with people, I realized that it wasn't just a one-off experience I was having. There were a lot of things they were coming across where they had really uninspired students who just happened to have, enough dollar to go. Or they were having situations where they had projects that were spending much more money on funding PhD students and short-term research than they were with doing good conservation work. And that's for me where I really began to make that distinction between what is field work and what is conservation. And it was just about kind of filling that niche. And I traveled around a lot in between and after my placement and came across a lot of projects who were really hardworking and would really benefit from some really hardworking science students, aspiring conservationists, something that the average person who just happened to have enough financial backing wouldn't cut it. So ConservationWise initially started with a student placement, essentially a recruitment agency, matching up the hard-working, genuine projects who were investing in their own conservation work rather than marketing to Western audiences and funding short-term PhDs, and hard-working conservation students who didn't have enough money to pay for those super expensive short-term trips and actually wanted to develop real field skills that they could then take back and use to build their own career. They didn't want a kind of glorified holiday, saying that they, stroked a tiger or built a school, which in some cases is entirely worthwhile, but there's often a lot of hidden costs there, and the amount that trickles through to the grassroots organisation is often minimal. And you're so right in saying that we both bring different parts to it, because for me, that was it, the science. I was done. I was just matched up. I was like, then I can live in the jungle as well. Everybody wins. Then I met Alex, and we just started talking about it, and I was telling him how I'd already got some projects set up and had some students who've been out there, and he was then saying, well, have you thought about kind of extending this? Like, you always say how conservation is a exclusive niche. You're catering to that niche. Why don't you branch out? Why don't you look at travel, look at lifestyle, and start pushing that message beyond the aspiring conservationists and to the proactive public? And for me, actually, the journey of conservation has been a journey that's evolved along the way, and kind of getting to this point, the point of launching a ConservationWise website, is a kind of recent point that I've reached. For me, I would be very happy living in the middle of nowhere, living in the jungle, doing very long, tedious behavioral studies on elusive primates. Like, I love that kind of stuff. I do not need running water, electricity. Sometimes it is definitely nice. And my hair has definitely looked better outside of the jungle. But I feel totally at home in those kind of conditions. And for me, actually, it's been the growing process of realizing that actually a conservationist does not shut themselves off in the jungle. That's what a field researcher does. A conservationist is the one that then communicates those messages with people who are not in the jungle. I guess at the beginning it was kind of a reluctant realization. I want to be in that jungle, but for me, it's just not enough. And I feel that to justify calling myself a conservationist, it means problem solving, it means communicating, it means bridging that gap between people shut off in the field and people at home or shopping in whatever supermarket they so choose. And I think that, it is definitely a growth and a thing that I've come to realize is the case, and something that I'm definitely still practicing at. Writing blogs is something Alex is much more natural at. I come across as a very sterile scientist using terms that just don't naturally flow off the tongue, whereas Alex is always like, imagine you're talking to someone on a bus, and I'm just like, however, other reports have shown
cognito ergo sum.
So it's definitely something that that I'm still working on, but for me it's just something that communicating and that inspiring others just is a requirement for someone who calls themselves a conservationist. It's just a given. It's a responsibility that comes with the role. We are essentially trying to kind of bring across ConservationWise as a mindset that everyone can kind of take part in and kind of take ownership of. So whether they are someone who, is a bit of a weekend traveller, but much more house proud, maybe they can have just as much an impact as someone who is maybe a regular budget backpacker kind of going all the way across the world. It's something that we can adopt into every part of our lives, and it doesn't require kind of crazy lifestyle changes or expensive commitments. It's just something that involves being aware of maybe something that you weren't before. So alternative products or projects that you can visit. It's much more of kind of adding on an experience rather than taking away from.
I kind of want to help educate and support inspiring millennials as well, about sort of like the environment and how they can become more eco-aware and enhance what they do on a daily basis. Because it is something that I think is quite achievable for everybody.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I know I've watched, this, is it Blackfish? And there's a bunch, I think Netflix is, you can fall down a rabbit hole of Netflix documentaries about any number of these topics. And what normally happens, or my experience with it, is some things are very easy to do, like not going to SeaWorld, that's easy to do. But not eating certain types of meat, or not eating meat maybe, or making decisions on the packaging, all those kind of things. I think you're right. Some things are really easy to do and stop or change, and some things aren't, because you've had a habit for so long of doing something in a certain way, and knowing how to change it is tough.
Yeah. And it can seem intimidating, and people can get very defensive over, being accused of being wrong. And I think that's somewhere where we're trying to really identify ourselves like separate from the existing market. We don't want to tell people to stop doing anything. We don't want to tell people to become strict vegans or sell their car or whatever. And I think that a big part of what we're trying to kind of promote with our community is accessibility. And we're doing that through a variety of ways. So for the whole of 2018, nearly said 2017 there, but I stuck myself. We're doing like ConservationWise New Year's resolutions. So we're taking the like generic get fit, eat better, whatever, read more, see more friends, and just giving them a conservation-wise slant, which essentially is all ConservationWise is. It's just a little bit of added extra, or it's a bit more it's just the mindset that you need to get in so you can eat better.
When I was at home for Christmas, for example, my mum had bought some prawns to make a prawn cocktail as you do at Christmas, and I just sort of said, did you notice how on the front it said that they've come from Thailand? And then when we were in, she was like, oh no, and I explained that to her. And then we were in the supermarket, I showed her, you can look for MSC, prawn, standard. So, get these sort of things from a more sustainable source. That's not to say that every MSC product is, the right thing to go for, but it was just a part, the first step on educating someone. She sort of has subsequently messaged me text messages and picture messages of things, and she's like, so is this what I have to look for? Is this what, I should be doing? And I'm sort of, first of all, really proud that my mum now knows how to use a camera phone, despite the fact that, she's even more of a Luddite than I. But sort of getting in contact with her and saying, this is the right thing to do, and explaining, because she is one of those people that watches, I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying this, she's one of those people that watches Blue Planet, thinks that it's a terrible thing, but perhaps when she's walking around the aisles in Tesco's, other supermarket providers are available, that she forgets what she should be doing, or what she could do. And so I think we're trying to sort of make that a simple process for people as well, because we do live on a finite resource. And so if we carry on doing what we're doing at the moment at the rate we're doing it, things aren't going to be around forever.
And I think that's what we're really keen to kind of maintain. We don't want to become dictators bossing people around. We want to provide people who are aware an easy alternative. One of our super cheesy slogans is that the right choice should be the easy choice, and we want to be the ones who can make that link.
And when we do go to places, we are a little bit nerdy about these sorts of things. Obviously, being scientists, when we go to places like Sri Lanka, we look ahead and we sort of try and find places that might be cool to go and visit. And we don't just, go with what the guidebook says. We'll perhaps do a little bit of research online and see about whether, place X is a reputable place to go to, or, all the things in between. And just sort of, we've had people, like I said earlier, we've had people come up to us and sort of say, well, man, that sounds like you had an amazing trip and been some places that are a bit unheard of. Would you be interested in, putting a wee itinerary together for us? And out of that came sort of the ConservationWise travel idea. And I think, again, just through the natural conversations we have with parents and things, like Jess is a vegetarian and I'm not. And when Jess goes home, and your dad's a bit of a carnivore, isn't he? And
he just does not understand the concept of not eating meat. Actually, when I first told him I was going vegetarian, he was like, but you still eat mince, don't you? And I was like, no.
And it's just interesting. It was interesting, the first few times meeting everybody, because that conversation would naturally come up at dinner time, because sort of turn around and say, well, Alex, you eat meat, don't you? And I'd be like, yes. And he would say, there's a conservationist who, isn't a vegetarian. And I think it was interesting to sort of see the way that we both would try and pass on the information about why we're interested in doing certain things. We just sort of thought, well, that could be something that we could pass on to like people and so the ConservationWise living aspect was sort of like created.
Yeah, it's an interesting combination because the placements obviously is something we both have direct experience with, having both been on them and both kind of recognise the need for a more kind of genuine route for aspiring conservation students. The travel is something we naturally do ourselves, and it's just about kind of disseminating that message to a wider audience. And the lifestyle is something that we're definitely on that journey ourselves.
Yeah.
We are always looking to kind of find more eco alternatives. We are in no way perfect with that. We make a lot of spontaneous purchases, and we went shopping today, and the plastic is often unavoidable. So going forward, we want to look for shops where it is avoidable, but we're not there yet. That's definitely a journey that we're inviting people to kind of come along and make the mistakes with us.
Well, I know, for example, me and my other half, we try and only eat. This is the stage we're at. We try and only eat organic. My other half is she's now done with meat. Really, she's decided the chemicals that are in a lot of it, the way that the animals are treated. I would rather just give up on meat.
It is the easy way to do it. It is a minefield.
Let's talk on that. So somebody is listening to this podcast at the moment and they're on board. They're like, okay, this sounds important. What don't they know? What are some of the big things they should know? What are some of the habits that they have, bad habits that they have that most people have that are causing real harm to the world? Like what don't we know yet? What should we know? What should we not be doing?
That's such a good question, and I feel like we should have a really good answer for.
I think there are probably, to sort of reverse it a bit, I think there are probably a lot of things that people do already that they don't realise that have a really big impact. So we live on the edge of the city centre of Edinburgh, and so I am able to, when I lived in Bristol, I used to have to drive in to work every day. I could have got the bus, but it was an hour and a half on the bus or 30-minute car journey. And now I live in Edinburgh, and I could equally get the bus into town, but I've made the choice to walk or cycle predominantly into town. And I think that making those small changes, which are good for your health, but also good for the environment, people probably underestimate how much of an impact they're having. And if people, do need to take transportation to commute, then trying to take public transport as often as possible is a great way to go about doing that. And I suppose like today, with the shopping, me and Jess took our bags for life, and I know that's just sort of something that
we actually took our hiking backpacks,
and we've got our sort of big hiking backpacks. So everybody thinks we're going on some sort of epic expedition when we go in and buy our vacuum packed broccoli. But yeah, it's But I think, joking aside, it's really important to make those small changes, and people probably don't realise like how that can make a difference. And we're really big advocates of using coffee cups that sort of reusable coffee cups, the keep cups and things like that, because a lot of coffee companies provide discounts for when you do that. And I think
Pret is the best one. Pret has just decided to double the discount that they'll give you if you take a reusable cup.
Yeah, and I think if people think about how many times they buy coffee and all that, and you add it up over the year, it probably is quite a huge impact. And so I think it's just about trying to make those sort of small changes that can have a big impact, because not everybody, including ourselves, not everybody can afford to change their energy supplier to a renewable energy source because of the cost involved. And we're exactly the same. We're both young. I like to consider myself young still. I'm very thankful that this is a podcast. I hate that comment. But yeah, I think that we can, when in the inceptions of our careers, and we haven't got tons of disposable income, so we have to make the smart choices. I think it's about making smart choices,
Yeah, I think so. And I think like picking up on one big thing that you said that to answer that question is people should not underestimate the impact that they can have. Yeah. And it's just those small sustainable, small non-sustainable things that they do again and again and again, spontaneous purchases that they don't realize, like that one-off water bottle. Buy a reusable water bottle. They look way better. They keep things cool so you can like have the same one in your bag so much longer. And you just realize, you know, after you have taken one to school every day or uni every day or work every day, you're like, whoa, that's like 300 a year or something, when actually I could have used one and I'd have been way more stylish. And so it doesn't matter which kind of side you're coming from. And we're trying to kind of get that message across to hit both audiences. But I think, yeah, the take home is people shouldn't underestimate, you know, just as you were saying, trying to shop in the supermarket, trying to find something good. I think it's when you kind of go in last minute and you've only got 5 minutes and, or, you know, the car's still running or the meter's still running or whatever, and you've got to dive in. I think if you can take more time to plan in advance while you're still building on those routines, I think that's a real key thing, because I think it's the lack of time often that people kind of trip up on. But I think the very simple answer to your question, I think, would be to buy a reusable water bottle and a reusable coffee cup. I think those two things people would use every single day, and over the course of a year it will save them a lot of money and a lot of waste.
What would you say to that person that says, even if I change, will it impact things enough?
So absolutely, yeah, that they can have a positive change.
And I actually think that people should do it because it makes so much of a difference, or can do, to yourself. You know, you take out the whole good for the planet, good for the environment. Cycling instead of the bus, that is so much better for you. You know, Scotland, yes, it is tricky with the rain, but that aside, health-wise, money-wise, often the more environmentally friendly options are much kinder to your pocket and your kind of fitness than the kind of lazier option in that instance. I think a lot of the lifestyle choices, like being able to show people the chemicals, antibiotics, everything used in them, the North Atlantic salmon have really bad impacts on people's health, you know, let alone the fish welfare with them being deformed and literally eaten alive by sea lice. If that bit doesn't do it for you, know that what you're eating there is actually bad for you. You know, if you can find other maybe line caught salmon from less overfished or heavily farmed areas, yeah, it's better for you. For taking our placement kind of side of the business on its own, students have to pay way less for a way more genuine and useful experience. I think that the whole thing about being conservation-wise and adopting a conservation-wise mindset is that you can maximize your experience whilst minimizing your impacts. It's not about giving anything up. It's not about having to make that hard decision. It's actually just realizing, oh my God, if I went to this amazing elephant orphanage in Sri Lanka rather than this horrible one where they kind of like exploit the fact that they've got orphan elephants, I can not only feel good about myself, but I can get a way better experience. I don't have to kind of spend 10 minutes and then get sharply rotated out. I can spend as long as I want watching the little baby elephants getting fed by people who really care. Like, everyone's a winner, I think, with conservation-wise choices. And for those that do have the privilege of being in Western societies, I think we have that responsibility to kind of make those ones that are a little tougher.
But what's the world that you imagine? How do you wish the world was?
How do I wish the world was? I think just a lot more aware. Like, I don't think that I mind if people want, speaking as a vegetarian, I initially went vegetarian because of environmental reasons. And then now, just having done a behavior and welfare master's course, that welfare stuff is playing heavily on my mind. But I think that, just like you were saying about those short documentaries, I think if people watched those or it was common knowledge and then made the decision to eat meat, I'm totally fine with that. For me, my bigger issue is that people don't know about that, or that that information is not even readily available. So I think that the world that I want is just where someone can make an informed decision. You know, I want them to know that this product they're buying has this knock-on effect. That, you know, I read something horrific the other day that I'd never even thought of, but all of our first ever toothbrushes still exist somewhere in the world in pretty much perfect condition. Like, plastic is not going anywhere fast. And so I think with ConservationWise, we just want to inspire a movement of eco-aware people or groups, and it leading to a generational or population-wide shift of priorities. I want people to have that option to change their own behaviour. I don't want anyone to be forced into it.
Funny is, I in the last, what would it be, 6 months? Yeah, 6 months. My other half, Sam, is the one who's educated me on what I should be doing. And 6 months ago, I would have said eating organic versus the cheapest meat you find is a luxury. It's a nicety. And I probably did it a little bit because I knew it was probably quite a good thing to do. But then I'd probably slipped back because really the motivation wasn't there. And I kind of just thought it was I probably should be doing that. You're right though, what's changed is she said, okay, watch this documentary, and if you still feel the same, no problem. And then you watch it and you go, yeah. I think the worst one I've seen, or the worst one I've seen recently is an article about butchers finding cancer-filled meat.
Cutting it out and still selling the meat.
Yeah. You seen that one?
Yeah.
That'll put you off. That'll make you rethink things pretty quickly. Yeah. So I guess my point with that is instead of feeling like people, I guess what you're saying is people shouldn't feel like they should be doing it. They should really understand it. And then the decision probably becomes a lot easier.
You cannot force people into making these behavioural changes. People have got so much else going on with their lives. Their families are their priorities, their career is their priorities, everyone to their own. But, you cannot force this kind of monumental thing on someone. You can just provide them the options, provide them the information, and they can make of it what they will. And I think that it's important to be non-biased in this. And I think that, from an environmental point of view, you actually don't need to be like the health benefits or the health costs or the, option for awesome travel versus average travel. They kind of speak for themselves, I think.
Yeah, you need to be apolitical about it and just allow people to make an informed decision themselves. And once you've provided people with that, then it's down to them to, go whichever way they want. But it needs to be, like Jess says, an unbiased providing of information so people can make the informed choice, really.
What are all the different ways?
So, we've got our website, which is www.conservationwise.org. We've also got a ConservationWise Instagram
and Facebook page
and Twitter account. And we're in the process of putting together a YouTube channel as well. Because this year, basically, we're looking to spend a year in Scotland. Our year in Scotland, once a month, we want to go out to a different area of Scotland because it's such a beautiful country that's got the natural world is, woven into the fabric of this country. It's amazing. And so we want to go out and explore some of these really unique wild places once a month, and hopefully once a month schedule depending on our other work commitments.
No, we're definitely going once a month.
We're definitely going once a month, as I said. And then we want to sort of go to these places, show you these places, how to get there in an eco-friendly way, but also we want to try and find some local conservation initiatives, people that are working to help protect and promote that area. And so for people that can't get on the 39 and go out into to the Pentlands or whatever, we want to encourage, we want to take people with us and show them where we go, what we do, and how we try and make the right choices. So when we're out and we're a bit hungry, which chippy do we go to? And do we go for the fully leaded iron brew, or do we go for the sugar-free iron brew, or and things like that? So we want to, but it's more importantly about promoting conservation-wise way to living, traveling, and
just kind of being aware of the decisions that you should make, whether you're on a safari in Africa or you want to go whale watching in Scotland. There's very similar decisions that you can
transferable. Sorry.
I mean, Scotland was voted the most beautiful country in the world for a reason, and so we want to make the most of that and show people that when they visit, this is how they should do it. And we found the best places for them. We've done the hard work. They just need to turn up.
If you're listening to this point, thank you. I appreciate you taking the 30-40 minutes out of your schedule, out of your day to listen in and hopefully grow. If you enjoyed it, please get involved in the Habit Hackers private Facebook group. This is a group of entrepreneurs and people looking to grow and learn the right habits, and a great community in which to share your thoughts, hear others, and learn and grow. We also have habithackerplanner.com. We have a new planner out, launching in the beginning of 2018. This is a planner that, unlike other planners, allows you to form the habits that are going to cultivate success in your life. It helps you cultivate gratitude, goal setting, time management, personal management within time, and so much more than that. Please check it out, habithackerplanner.com.